Welcome to the Think Like a Saver 5 Ways to Make Saving Easier virtual town hall. Join members of the America Saves team, along with industry experts, as we discuss some very simple ways to make saving less daunting. With the help of some simple mindset shifts, tips, and strategies, you will have what you need to save effectively, successfully, and build your financial confidence. We encourage you to take notes, share, leave comments, and ask questions. Welcome to the Town Hall.
Thank you so much for tuning into Think Like a Saver, 5 Ways to Make Savings Easier. My name is Kia McAllister Young. I'm the co-director here at America Saves. And if you're watching with us today, it's also the kickoff of the 15th annual America Saves Week. America Saves Week is a time-honored tradition, a national conversation about the importance of savings. It's a time to pause and have a financial check-in with yourself to get clear on the view of your money and where you are financially. So we're excited to start this America Saves Week right here with you at our virtual town hall. Now, if you've joined us before, you know that just because you're here with us today, you are eligible for 2 amazing opportunities. First is the ability to be paired with a financial coach or counselor at absolutely no cost to you. So a free financial coach or counselor, thanks to our friends over at AFCPE and the Coordinated Assistance Network. They have made this opportunity possible to you, and all you have to do is sign up at the link below that we'll also put in the comments, and be sure to tell them that America Saves sent you. That's super important. Don't forget that, okay? The other great opportunity that you have today is our Think Like a Saver sweepstakes, which are 5 $500 cash prizes that we're giving away to you, our savers. Now, all you have to do in order to be eligible is to watch today's town hall before the end of America Saves Week, which is Friday at February 25th at midnight, and tell us your top takeaway. So leave a comment, whether you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook. Leave your top takeaway in the comments. The other thing that you have to make sure that you've done is taken the America Saves Pledge within the last 12 months. Now, if you're not sure if you've taken the pledge in the last 12 months, then just go take it. It cannot hurt you one way or the other to repledge, okay? And while we're talking about taking the pledge, here's a sneak peek at why taking the pledge can help jumpstart your savings journey and why it's so important.
A recent savings goal that I had was saving for my move to DC with my girlfriend. You know, we're really young, like I'm 23, she's 21, still in school, and like we didn't have a lot of people that we knew, including our parents, that was able to go live in a place that they've wanted to live at that age. The base amount of money that we wanted to have saved before we left was about $3,000 to cover first month's rent, cover the moving expenses for the U-Haul, and cover any extra expenses we had when we got here. I set aside 20% of my paycheck to go directly into our joint savings account that was dedicated only for moving expenses. But I know myself. If I have direct access to money at all times, if it was just being put into a checking account, there was no way we'd be able to save. So I knew that we needed to create a separate account that we wouldn't touch, that we wouldn't pull out from at all until our moving date. When we realized that we had the money to move and actually go, I'm not gonna lie, like I cried. I called my parents. I was like, I'm moving, like it's happening, we are going. Now we have a new savings goal. We want to get a house. I know that we can do it because we've done it before. And we want to get married, so we're also saving up for that. Everyone starts in like a different financial place, right? So it's a good idea to like start your savings journey, and you can start that with the America Saves Pledge.
So, as you jumpstart your savings journey, it's important to know that there is no one right way to do it. Everyone has different finances, has different ways of thinking about money, and a large part of it has to do with our own unique lived experiences, right? The most important thing to do is figuring out your style of what we call thinking like a saver. So, thinking like a saver simply means defining how you like to save in any given situation. And that might change from scenario to scenario. Here's an example. I like to use the example of purchasing a new pair of jeans, right? So, how do you approach when it's time for a new pair of jeans? How do you make the decision of what you're going to spend, how you're going to spend it? There are a few things that we've heard from our savers of how they like to buy new jeans. Would you go to a trusted brand like, let's say, Old Navy and just grab a pair of new jeans, right? It's anywhere between 30 and 60 bucks, right? Or would you scope out first before you even decide what store? Would you go and scope out what store is having a sale and shop there with a specific amount budgeted for your jeans? That's an option, right? Another option could be to go thrifting because you enjoy the hunt and you care about the environment, right? And are a conscious consumer. So thrifting is an option. Or you might decide, I'm going to go get a very high-end pair of jeans that cost over $100, but those jeans are going to last you for years and years, okay? Versus like a pair of jeans that you might have to replace every year. So in all of these scenarios, the people were saving focused, right? Just in very different ways. All of them were thinking like a saver. So, what we need you to understand is there is no wrong way to think like a saver as long as you understand your specific approach and why you approach things that way. So, as we kick off America Saves Week, keep the theme of thinking like a saver and building your own financial resilience front and center. Each day this week, we have a new topic for you to give some thought to as you're doing that financial check in with yourself. Tomorrow's topic is Save for the Unexpected. On Wednesday, we'll be talking about saving for retirement. On Thursday, we talk about how you can save by reducing your debt. And on Friday, we talk about how to save as a family. But our first way to make sure that saving is easier actually coincides with today's theme of America Saves Week. And that theme is to save automatically.
During the pandemic, place of employment closed down. They sent everybody home for about 6 weeks, and you can use vacation if you had it. And if you didn't, you could draw unemployment, but there was a waiting period. So in between that waiting period, what are you gonna do, We have a savings account, and it comes automatically out of each paycheck. There's a certain amount that comes out that goes to savings before anything else. I don't know how we would have made it for that entire year if we didn't have our savings. My advice to anyone about a savings account, first of all, is that it's very necessary that I would have it automatically withdrawn from my paycheck. And it doesn't have to be $500 goes to your savings a week. It could be $2, it could be $10, but you have to have something set aside, something automatically that you don't even see go to your savings, because if you don't see it, you don't miss it. You never know what's gonna happen in life. You just never know. So, but if you got a savings to fall back on, to dip into, if you have to, then it's a blessing.
Fun fact, the woman in that video giving all that great advice about saving automatically is actually my mom. And all those pictures were my nieces, nephews, even some of my kids in there. She was so nervous filming that, but I think she did a really great job. Now, you may be asking yourself, after hearing how important it is to save automatically, how do you actually do it? How do you start saving automatically? So, here's a tip from our strategic partnership coordinator at America Saves, Amanda Woods, to help you with that.
Whether you're just starting your savings journey or have been at this for a while, the most important action you can take is to make saving automatic. It's the easiest and most effective way to save. So how do you do that? By setting up funds to go directly into your savings account through your employer or your financial institution. Most employers will allow you to split your direct deposit, having a portion go into a checking account and part go into savings. When you reach out to your HR department to set up split deposit, you'll choose an amount that will automatically go into savings each time you get paid. If you're going through your financial institution, the process is similar, though you'll instruct your financial institution to make these transfers at an interval of your choice. You can also schedule regular automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings account that happen separately from your paycheck. When you commit to saving automatically, you're not losing your autonomy. You get to choose how much will be directed towards savings. That means you can ease into saving, start small, and watch your savings grow with each deposit or transfer. So what's next in the step to get started? Reach out to your employer or financial institution to get started saving automatically.
Our second way that makes savings easier is embracing the concept that saving is a habit, not a destination. To chat about this further, I'm joined by Rachel DeLeon, the Interim Executive Director at AFCPE, the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education. Now, because of your organization and working directly with people from all types of backgrounds and financial scenarios all over the country, you and the AFCs that work under AFCPE probably have a lot of insights on the struggles that people face when it comes to prioritizing saving. Now, how do they really describe their relationship with money? I'm interested in on hearing what people say when they talk about how they feel about their money.
Yeah, thank you, Kia, so much for having me today. If I had to describe people's relationships with money and how they describe them, the first words that come to my mind are complicated and varied. AFC professionals meet with people from all walks of life, and every person is unique in their values, their goals, their behaviors. And whether we realize it or not, our relationship with money begins when we're young, and it's influenced by our community and our background and our culture. So the way we think about it is so different for each person. You might make a choice when you're young and your money identity becomes, I'm bad with money. Or you might be struggling to get out of debt and living paycheck to paycheck, and you feel so overwhelmed and stressed. And as that stress grows, you avoid your money issues. Or you might just be surrounded by people who seem to have it all together, and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you find yourself making impulsive purchases or spending beyond your means. All of those different relationships are complicated and they're varied.
So true. As you were talking about them, like I've felt every single one of those at some point or another, thought of them or thought that about myself. So I really kind of resonate with that feeling that saving can be a kind of a rat race, right? And especially when
Absolutely.
we hear the gurus and financial advisors tell us, oh, in order to be ready for an emergency, you need to have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up. And man, when you're living paycheck to paycheck or don't have a lot of extra left over, that just seems really overwhelming and stressful. I mean, we've been a military family before. It felt like every time we'd get a little bit of ahead, something would happen, something would break, or we'd have to move to a new place. So I understand exactly how all of those different emotions come up when you think about your relationship with money. And I tell
Yeah.
you, when I joined the team here at America Saves, we'd have a lot of discussions. We just sit around and have a lot of team discussions around the fact that becoming a successful saver is more about building the habit of saving and not necessarily saying, oh, I'm saving for this dollar amount and I'm not successful until I reach that dollar amount. And that's one of the things that we really want people to kind of understand and embrace. And that's what we mean when we say saving is a habit, not a destination, right? It's a similar
Right.
concept that you share with those that you're counseling, right? And so, how do your counselors and coaches tell people or encourage people how to build the habit of saving?
Absolutely. Well, first, I just want to be clear that I myself am not a financial counselor. I am proud to lead a nonprofit organization that certifies, supports, and educates financial counselors. We work with professionals who believe that if they're passionate about helping people with their money in order to improve their lives. But to answer your question, I think there are several important steps to building savings. And you're right, it's not a race, but it does help to start early. Um, Early in my career, I worked for a very large company that offered a 401k. But when you started at the company, you couldn't enroll in that 401k right away. And I got started at the organization. I was young. I was working really long hours, and I had very little financial education. And about 2 years into my time there, I had a young manager who pulled our team aside and said, if you are not enrolled in this 401k, you are missing out. She said, you are essentially, the company had a match. I was essentially giving away free money. And, in that moment, she was teaching us the power of compound interest, the power of starting early. And so I'm really thankful for that experience in my own life and that lesson. And I really wish that more employers would provide that to their employees. So I think the best way to save is to save automatically. Or another way to say this would be to pay yourself first. Having a percentage of your paycheck directly deposited each pay period into a retirement account. And if you budget accordingly, you won't even miss that money. If you're in debt or struggling to get out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle, I think talking to someone can certainly help. At AFCPE, we certify accredited financial counselors. They can help people align their spending with their needs, their values, their goals. They can help you work through strategies to pay off debt while also balancing your living expenses. They can help you identify local resources and really way to build savings in a way that's sustainable and geared towards long-term stability.
Those are all really great points, great tips, and even a great resource by reaching out with an AFC. We'll talk in a little bit about how all of our savers that are watching can work with an AFC at no cost to them in just a bit. But first, we were talking about like building those savings and how you can build that habit. Now, can we switch that a little bit to what happens when you have done what you were supposed to do? You've done the automatic savings, you started early, you've built up a savings account, and then you have to spend it. Like we've been hearing, especially since the pandemic, from our savers who had savings and have had to spend that down, the emotions that go along with seeing that savings account kind of dwindle. So can you talk a little bit about those emotions that you feel when you have to spend it and then how you can reframe that?
Yeah, absolutely. I am one of those people that feels that pain when I have to
Mhm.
spend down my emergency fund. Whenever our emergency fund is fully funded, you feel so good. And then suddenly the reason you saved for it in the first place comes up and you immediately feel guilty. Why should I tap into this? And you know what? No matter what happens, the unexpected will happen. It doesn't matter the due diligence that you do to be prepared. It's just a matter of when, whether your heater goes out, your car breaks down, your kid breaks their arm. It runs the gamut. So I always just say, celebrate that you did the work to get there and know that there is a time and a place. This is what you saved for.
This is what you save for. I think we had a blog post about that on our from Military Saves right at the
Mhm.
beginning of the pandemic. So, okay, so basically, what we all need to recognize is that saving is a cycle, and that your savings account is not going to always look the same. It's going to go up and down. It's just part of the process. And a great money mindset shift is to kind of recognize that, like, this is the emergency you were saving for, and to be proud about that. So, for someone just starting out or maybe just starting over with savings, what advice would you give them with getting started or jump starting their savings?
I would really just say start now, right where you are, no matter how small. Every time you set aside money, you're building that habit. And the habit is what is the key to that long term success. Even, if it's $1 a week or $5, a month, any tiny bit starts to build that habit. Um, and then make it automatic. Have that money transferred automatically from your paycheck to your savings. So that way it's out of sight, out of mind. Um, and one of the best kind of pieces of advice is start to think about savings as something that you need, just like groceries or a mortgage. It's not a want, it's a need. And so, build that into your budget and it becomes, reframing how you're looking at it, which is often hard when you're saving for something well in the future and not that immediate need. It's still a need.
Even in our tool, our we don't call it a budget, we call it a spending and savings plan. But in the tool that
Yes.
we have, that's the spending and savings plan, we actually build in space for you to add what you're going to save for, so that you do feel like, okay, this is something that's not extra. This isn't a want. This is a part of my monthly expenses. I'm saving for retirement. I'm saving for my emergency fund, and those things actually go on your spending and savings plan. So all really, really great points. Now, the great thing about this is everything that we've talked about, our savers that are watching today can actually get help with getting started by taking advantage of the free financial coaching and counseling America Saves offers for our savers through AFCPE. Now, Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about what that process looks like?
Absolutely. So, this program actually stemmed from early in the pandemic, and we're very fortunate to be able to continue to offer this. It was started with the generosity of Wells Fargo Foundation, and AFCPE is our counselors, our credit financial counselors, are offering free one on one financial counseling, coaching, education sessions to anyone who has a personal finance question. You don't have to be an immediate crisis. There are people there to help guide you and connect you with the right resources. For those who are interested, you can find out more about this on findanafc.org. There is a pro bono financial counseling button at the top of the page, and you'll find a link for anyone in the general public. And we're super excited, but this month we launched another outside of our initiative that is in partnership with AMBA. And we'll have opportunities for veterans to meet with a financial counselor who has a specific military background. And so all of the sessions are free and unbiased and open to anyone who has a question or a need.
So, for anyone who's watching and wants to take better control of their finances, but they may feel shame or embarrassed, maybe even about their credit score or the state of their finances, Rachel, what would you tell them about working with an AFC and how that can maybe ease some of those worries they have?
I would just tell them that they are not alone. Everyone, or nearly everyone, struggles with finances at some point in their life. And the more we talk about it openly and the more we break down that stigma of shame, the more we help one another. Most of us were not provided with financial education within our youth. And what we learned from our parents or by trial and error, and we are still learning. We might have created habits that worked for us at one time, and suddenly they're no longer serving us. And so, I just say, remember, you're not alone. It's okay to ask for help. Um, you know, whether it's a financial planner, financial counselor, financial coach, accredited financial counselor in this case, they're not going to provide you a prescriptive plan. Those don't work. An AFC professional is going to be able to meet you where you are and help you develop a plan that will work for you.
So important. Hopefully that means that you guys are going to have so many people from the town hall reaching out so that they can get the support they need. It's the perfect time with it being America Saves Week. And that really reminds me of something that we focus on here at America Saves, and that's building financial confidence. So having financial confidence isn't merely having a savings account that has a certain amount of money in it, and so you feel better about it, and then having a retirement savings. Being financially confident is about gaining financial stability, but also knowing what resources can help you. So you may not be where you want to be just yet, but you know where you can reach out to get help from. And in this case, building that financial confidence, having access to an AFC is, helping you build that confidence. It's being able to take advantage of a resource that you can use to gain financial stability. So, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. And then for our savers, just to reiterate, this week being America Saves Week, it's all about doing a financial check-in with yourself. And again, there's no better time to take advantage of working with an accredited financial counselor or coach at zero cost to you. So to sign up, head to americasaves.org. We'll put the link in the comments. And don't forget to share that you were referred by America. Now, one of the mottos or money mindset beliefs that was coined by America Saves is the idea to start small and think big. And it is our third way to make saving easier. Now, I know personally, as a divorced mom of three kids, I have one in college, one in high school that has chosen college as his path, and then one with a disability. My youngest has Down syndrome. That when I think collectively of how much I have to save and all the different competing priorities that I have when it comes to saving, it gets overwhelming very quickly. And when I start to feel like it's all too much, the idea of starting small and thinking big is what recenters me. Now, every financial scenario is different, right? And where you start today isn't necessarily where you're going to be even a year from now, especially if you've done the things that we've already talked about, like automatic savings and focus on building that savings habit, right? And then getting a really clear view of where you are financially. Then you can make a plan of where you want to be in a year or 3 years or 5 years. So I'd like to introduce you to Nicole Barham. Nicole is a finance systems coach and the founder of Design Your Wealth. And if she looks familiar, well, she was recently featured on Good Morning America. Nicole is a personal friend and one that I personally just am in awe of her story. She shared it with me and a lot of our mutual friends several times over. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. Now, I personally could talk about your story to any and everyone, I feel like, but I'll let you share a bit about where you were around 18 months ago with our savers.
Thank you so much for having me, Kia. So 18 months ago, I was actually, in a day job, working my side hustle and trying to build my business. And so I was not saving anything. I was in a job. I was living paycheck to paycheck and just really wanted to be an entrepreneur because like you, Kia, I have a son who has special needs. My son Brandon is on the autism spectrum. And so I wanted to have that financial freedom where I was making more money so I could take care of my son take care of all the therapies, stuff like that. But I was not doing that. And we can even go a few years earlier than that, 7 years ago. I was not saving at all. In fact, I was spending so much money, more than I was making, that my husband and I found ourselves in over six figures of debt. And so we were not saving any money. We were in so much debt that we had to file bankruptcy. And so that can tell you where my mindset was at when that was happening. And since then, it's been a total turnaround in terms of getting ourselves out of debt and also getting on the path to changing our financial lives. But it was not easy. It took years, but then I started to um, keep track of my finances and make saving a priority.
Nicole, can I ask you, how did you go about like changing the mindset of like I'm going like spending to I'm going to kind of take control of this? What were those small like incremental things that you did that contributed to being able to, kind of claw yourself out of six figures of debt?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the biggest thing that I did was my background is accounting, right? So I worked for my company for many years, and I took care of their money, right? I focused on their finances. So I said to myself, this is easy for me. This is what I do in my day job. Why can't I apply it to my personal life, right? And also, I remember when we were in bankruptcy court, someone had said, people file bankruptcy more than once. And I said, not me. Like I'm one and done, right? So I on that day I decided to be a good steward of my money, right? And I decided to use the same skills that I was using in my job many years ago as an accountant, and also to create these a budget. Like I know everybody hates the B word, but I definitely started to create a budget for my family, for my household, knew every penny that was coming in and going out. And then that's how we started to kind of turn the tide on the, being in so much debt. And when you file bankruptcy, you do not get all of your debt discharged. So that's a myth, right? So we still had debt even though we filed bankruptcy. And so we really had to be really good stewards of our money, really focus on what's coming in, what's going out, stick to the budget. And that's how we were able to kind of pull ourselves out of that situation.
Now, let's fast forward to today where you're in a completely different situation. Would you like to share like how you are doing today with
Yeah,
your finances?
absolutely. So, being a good steward of my money, working on creating these simple systems, simple tracking devices or tools, I was able to stay on top of my finances, and I figured I could teach other people to do the same thing, right? So I created my business, which is Design Your Wealth, created my business around helping women, mostly women entrepreneurs, because I was an entrepreneur then. And I still wasn't staying on top of my finances, right? And I know that there's a lot of people out there like me. So I I created my business. It's called Design Your Wealth. And I show people how to stay on top of their finances. And I've created a business for myself, a multiple six-figure business, blown my own mind in the last 18 months. And it really is, so needed. A lot of people are really not saving. We can bring the money into the household and into the business. We know that, but it's to really put money aside for savings. Do we have an emergency account? Do we have money put aside for our children's education, our children's future? Like my son, as I mentioned before, has special needs. He's going to need therapies. He might need me to put money aside for later on, right? So I've built a business around finances and helping people control their finances, because that's the only way that they can design their wealth, right? Create the kind of finances that you want in your business by being able to budget and save.
Love that. And we've talked about how getting a clear view of your finances is really just the beginning. And we have a very simple tool at America Saves, our spending and savings tool that we'll link in the comments for you guys. It's a great way to start, really looking at all the income that you have coming in, all the expenses that you have going out, and not just those, what we call like our bills, but also those things that are important to us to save for. So once you get a clear look at your income and then your like monthly expenses, we have you look at what are those things you'd like to be saving for? What are those like subscription services and even the fun things, the dining, the eating out or whatever that's important to you. All of that you can account for on our spending and savings tool. So you can really get a really clear view of what's left over after you've paid all your bills. And then, as Nicole mentioned, be a good steward of that discretionary disposable income that you have, so you can direct it towards saving for certain things. You can direct it toward fund money for yourself or helping others, gifting, and making charitable donations. So Nicole, really, really incredible story. And I know with the onset of the pandemic, one of the things that became really clear to us as an organization is that our savers were experiencing like three kind of shifts with their money. There was a group of our savers that had no savings, so they were really vulnerable, right? There was a group that had some savings, but were having to spend that savings down. And with that came a lot of conflicting feelings, like, to see what you have built, the safety net that you've built, start to dwindle down makes you feel less safe, right? And then there was a third group who had more income than before the pandemic. I know you can relate to that, Nicole. And so, in many cases, those that had more income, it was either because they were receiving more unemployment that they were getting when they were working their full time job. Some of them had more income because of the stimulus, and many small business owners like yourself saw an increase in their income too. So you might remember, if you are a saver and have been with us through our town hall several months ago, during Creative Ways to Save, we happened upon a conversation with our next guest, Taylor Tepper, who's going to join us. He's a senior financial analyst at Forbes Advisor. And we had this conversation about lifestyle creep. And it's funny because it wasn't a planned conversation, but we got so much feedback from our savers about the idea of lifestyle creep. We were talking about it from a perspective of retirement, but it resonated so much with our audience that we had to bring Taylor back. So thank you, Taylor, for coming back with us. And then for those that have not heard of lifestyle creep before, can you share with everyone what lifestyle creep is?
So thank you so much for inviting me back. That I'm glad to be here. It's lovely to chat about these sort of fun issues and scary issues and make them less scary and fun for people and accessible. So lifestyle creep is sort of the idea that as you make more money, your standards grow, and the things that you think you can afford and the things that seem normal for you to buy just end up costing more and more money. And once you sort of set a new standard, then you go up a little bit more when you get another raise. So for instance, I bought my first car when I had a job and we had a little kid, so we needed a car, was about $20,000 or so. And the next car that I bought was about $30,000. That was about 5 or 6 years later. And then we just bought a new car because we have a third kid, just like you. And so we needed a third row car, and that one ended up being about $40,000. So we, over this time, my wife and I have made more money, but our standards have increased. What we think we need has increased, and so we're spending more money, even though we could have, spent what we spent last time. So that's sort of the idea: is that as more money comes in, more money comes out, and your what you sort of expect from your purchases grows, and you're not staying in hostels when you go abroad. You're staying in a nice hotel room, and then you're staying in the resort suite, and it sort of goes on from there.
And really, lifestyle creep can happen at any kind of income increase. So whether you can afford to travel abroad or if you're not at the place where you're traveling right now, it really doesn't matter. As long as you're seeing that increase, your kind of idea of what you can afford expands, right?
Yeah, of course. And so, yeah, it's like if you were going out to, I don't know, Applebee's, and then you start going out to like a slightly fancier, restaurant that still has like sports on the TV. And then, like, your date night is even fancier. Instead of getting a glass of wine, you get a bottle of wine. And so, yeah, it's no matter what it is, you start from where you started to where you're going, sort of that increase in your spending dovetails with the increase of your income. So whatever the base is to whatever it sort of ends up as. And this is a real problem because, you might be thinking, well, yeah, I'm making more money, I'm spending more money. That's sort of the thing, right? That's the good thing. And that's sort of why I'm working, so I can enjoy this stuff. And I think I have a lot of sympathy for that. We don't want to live in, holes in the wall. We want to give our kids every advantage. We want to, enroll them in more things that cost more money and the like. And I completely get that. And I think you can still do that. The problem is that you're falling more and more behind in your sort of savings and your long-term savings. And when you're younger, when you're sort of in your 20s and 30s, that's when the exponential growth in your income happens. Like if you look at sort of historical research, the Fed has done research, like a bunch of different, the BLS has done research. Basically, you make a lot. Your rate of growth for your income is primarily focused from your 20s to about your 40s. And then, so it's this big curve, and then it starts to slow down in your 40s and 50s. And then by the time you hit your 50s, it's sort of, when you adjust for inflation, it sort of comes down a little bit. And so if you are getting this mindset that, I'm making more money, I can spend more money, I'm making more money, I can spend more money, you hit a point where that's no longer true. And if you haven't been aggressive about your savings, you'll fall behind in sort of the long-term things that you want, whether that's, saving up for the house or even saving for retirement. So the problem with lifestyle creep is that it puts more and more pressure on you puts more and more pressure on your savings. And when it actually comes time to retire, it means that you need more money to sort of finance your income. And that's why so many people, when they go into retirement with not enough money saved, those first 10 years or so, they spend that time readjusting basically and lowering their standard of living and buying fewer stuff and sort of having this cold splash of water in their face about what they can do.
I love that, Taylor. I feel like when you were describing what lifestyle creep is, I might be about to age myself, but I started thinking about that song "Started from the Bottom, Now We're Here," and like
Yeah.
every time you get a little bit of increase, you start doing more nice things, and also thanks for that point about your income kind of slowing down when you hit 40. I just turned 40 last week, so that's something I have to keep in mind.
Happy
I feel
birthday.
like this, thanks. I feel like this is just kind of, this conversation is all just about things to be mindful of. I was just saying, like, okay, one of the things how I kind of keep on track with the lifestyle creep is I have it set up for my 401k that every year I increase it by at least 1%. So, and it's automatic. Like they don't even have to ask me about it. It automatically happens. So as my income adjusts, I ensure that my retirement is adjusting as well. Nicole, as we're having this conversation about lifestyle creep, is there anything that kind of stood out to you that you're like, oh yes, that's happened to me, or ways that you've been cognizant of that lifestyle creep that's happening in your life or your family?
Absolutely. Everything that Taylor said, I was like, oh my goodness, that used to be me. That used to be me. So, but you know what? I think that there's a balance, right? So you make more money and you want to reward yourself. You want to celebrate. So you might, do a couple things here or there. So for me, I would maybe if I'm traveling, I'll upgrade to business class or first class, depending. But also, I would add more money to my savings, add more money to my retirement. And so kind of, and I started to get into the habit of allocating my money before I spent it. And that really helped me with the lifestyle creep because earlier, let me tell you, you're right. In the 20s and 30s, as soon as I got an increase in my salary, it was gone. Like within a few months, I felt like I was back to where I was before I got the increase because I bought more stuff, I spent more money. And so I totally resonate with the lifestyle creep earlier. And now that I'm way into my 40s, approaching my 50s, I do not do that anymore. I see that additional money as money that I can put away, not all of it, because I really still want to treat myself and I really want nice things still, but not, spending all of it at the same time and being back in the same place a few months from now. So yeah, totally, I totally resonate with that.
Really, really good information and tips and advice on how you can actually balance, enjoying that new income and also like, doing the things to ensure that you're saving for your future as well. So,
Yep.
another quick idea that I want to talk about is the fact that lifestyle creep isn't just limited to earning more money or getting a promotion at your job. You can also fall into like a major windfall, like a tax refund. A lot of people are going to start getting their tax refund soon if they haven't already, or maybe a bonus at your job. So, Taylor, how would you advise others to avoid lifestyle creep, even when it's not like an income adjustment, but when it's just like they have this nice chunk of money, and maybe that is their best time to maybe save?
Yes. So tax refunds. It's a really, and again, what Nicole was saying was spot on, and I think it dovetails with this really nicely because you want to find ways for yourself that make sense for you and your family to account for the money, right? So I have this thing where I write down every single purchase my wife and I makes, and she hates it, and I kind of like it, but like I do it, and so that helps keep our family kind of on track. So like you can't have judgments or anything, you can't, but you just need to make sure that y'all are on the same page about how much money's coming in, how much money's coming out, and that gives you sort of the financial self efficacy, the power, like the confidence that you're in control of your of your money, because lifestyle creep is very much a passive thing, right? It's sort of like you're in the tide, you're being swept out, you don't even realize it happening. And so having that sort of confidence that you can be in control of your money is very important. It allows you to do it, and if you do small things, and you'll, like to your motto, those sort of little wins help give you more and more confidence too. So when it comes time to a windfall, like a tax refund or a big bonus, I would say a few things. One, a lot of people use that money to pay for things that they had planned on paying. They sort of knew the money was coming in. They're gonna plan on paying it now. That's fine. You recommend using that money to do things like what Nicole said, which is sort of buttress your emergency savings account. Make sure that's what it should be, which is, this typical line from people like me is, 3 to 6 months worth of essential expenses. So basically you want to have a lot of money there. And the reason you want a lot of money there is that you don't want to go into debt if you happen to lose a job, or you have to cut down your work hours because someone's sick, or if you want to go back to school to get an education to help you with future career stuff. You want to have money because that money gives you options, and it reduces the amount of debt you have to take on, and you don't have to pay the interest over a long period of time on that debt. So that's why you want that. So I would use a big windfall like like a refund to sort of make sure that emergency fund is financed. Make sure your other savings goals are financed. You can use that as a way to sort of jumpstart your kids' college savings accounts. And once there's money in there and you see it sort of grow a little bit, you feel more confident over the year that to sort of put in a little bit more money each month because you see it grow. And all you needed was that initial push to get you going. For a bonus, I think a good rule of thumb, and this is true for income raises too, but also for the bonus, is save half, right? Like save half. Whatever you make, whatever more money you make, put half of that away into a 401k, into your IRA, into the college savings funds. Put it away. Don't spend the money, and then the other half you can allocate to yourself for spending.
I love that approach, and I love that you kind of switch or have a different approach for tax refund and bonuses. And both of those those different advice or tips that you gave kind of reminds me of a strategy that we share here with our savers. A little bit different, but kind of the same concept. So what we say is to use the 30-40-30 rule, and it's essentially looking at your finances from the lens of the past, the present, and the future. So when you get a nice chunk of money or a windfall, put 30% toward your past, which is your debt. Take 40% for the present, which are your current expenses and some of the things you want. That's where you can kind of treat yourself or your family. And then that last 30% goes toward your future. So those are things like your retirement, your education, or buying a home. So I think between America Saves and you, Taylor, I think the goal is to look at your overall finances and make sure you're putting money toward savings, whatever strategy that you use, to kind of prioritize what you're saving for, and to make sure that you are buffing that with any kind of windfall or income adjustment that you have, right? Nicole, Taylor, any final thoughts about um, saving or lifestyle creep, or anything that we should be aware of when you get an increase in income, whether it's working or a different type of cash injection?
I find that sometimes when we get that windfall, we sometimes think that it's money that we can just go spend and just be lavish. And as we mentioned before, that's amazing and we definitely should do that. But I think sometimes we forget that we have to think about the future. What about our savings? Taylor was talking about something happens in your family, an emergency, you have to cut back your hours. Then you can feel comfortable that you have this money that you did not spend all of it. You have some of it put away so that you can take on these challenges that may pop up. So yeah, I think that what you all shared was amazing, great advice, and advice that I have used in my life as well.
I think people need to, like, if you look at Nicole's life experience, which is, amazing. I think people sort of get into the habit of thinking that their life sort of over the next 10, 15 years is sort of going to be the way their life is now, but just with more gray hair or more, or less hair in my case. And I think that's sort of a bias that we all have, and that's wrong. I think we underestimate how much life changes over time. And so we think that things will sort of just keep going on in the steady pace. And that's why we think we can afford the things we can afford. Or we don't need to really get into the nitty gritty of our finances because, we're fine now. We're doing okay now. We're going to be doing okay later. And that's why, money is an inherently sort of fraught issue for people to deal with anyway. And so I think just if for anyone who's sort of resistant to what we've been talking about or a little skeptical, just look at your life 10 years ago and think about how much has changed and how much not only your life, like where you're living and your kids, but sort of like the way you think and the things that you buy, and the how much do you spend at the grocery store now compared to 10 years ago? How much how much do you spend at the restaurant now compared to 10 years ago? What do you feel like is normal? And then realize that like over the next 10, 15 years, that's probably going to change a lot too. And so that's the lifestyle creep that we're talking about. And one way to sort of guard against sort of the negative effects of that, is thinking about the long term through these sort of strategies that we've talked about, and being mindful of the money coming in and mindful of these changes happening, and actuating changes that will improve your life as you get older. So
Well, I mean, Taylor, just posing that question, I feel like I need to do some journaling tonight myself. If I think about myself 10 years ago and what I enjoyed then versus like how I spend now, it's astronomical. So thank you for that. That is a good exercise for all of us to do. Nicole, Taylor, thank you so much. Nicole, for sharing your story. Taylor, for always sharing such great advice and in different ways to think about how we approach our money, and being good stewards of what we have been gifted to ourselves and our lives. So thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
thank
Thank you
you.
for having me, Kia.
So far, we've shared 4 ways to make saving easier, and it's time to share our fifth. And our fifth way to make saving easier, just a little bit easier, is the idea that paying down debt is saving. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend Rod Griffin, who is the Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy at Experian. Rod, can you share some of the ways that paying down your debt is actually saving to our savers?
Absolutely, Kia. Thank you for having me. And the first thing to remember is that debt is expense. So if you are paying down your debt, you owe less debt, then you have additional funds that you can put towards saving or investing or toward your other financial goals. So really simple, debt is expense. And if you can reduce that expense, you're going to be able to save more.
Really, really important to kind of frame first as you're paying off that debt. Now, let's talk about credit scores a little bit. You're with Experience, so we can't let you leave without talking about that. For our savers out there that are very focused and have a goal of increasing their credit score right now, what are some basic things or foundational advice that they need to know or consider as they try to increase their credit score?
Sure. Credit scores are, I always like to point out first, are just simply a reflection of the information in your credit report. So if you take care of your credit report, you'll have good credit scores. Credit scores are important because with good credit history, with good scores, you will save money because you'll pay less for credit that you have, so lower interest rates, so lower fees. It can also mean that you can save money when you're leasing an apartment on the security deposits or the lease itself. It can help you get a cell phone and pay better terms. It can help you reduce costs of utilities when you're, again, those connection fees and things. So a good credit score is an investment in your own financial health. So building that good credit score is really important. And there are other things you can do today with your credit score, like have your cell phone payments, positive cell phone payments, your positive utility payments, your positive streaming service payments like Netflix added to your credit report through Experian. If you go to experian.com/boost, and that can help improve your credit scores as well if you choose to do that. It's permission based, it's free service. We're seeing people who are telling us that if they have thin credit scores or credit scores that are fairly low, see significant improvements, as much as 19 or 20 points in many cases. But that credit score, really crucial. 2 things you have to do. Really, the big secret is there isn't one. You have to pay your bills on time every single time, and you have to keep the balances on those credit cards as low as you can. Pay them off in full if you can each month. And that's going to ensure you have good credit scores, because those on-time payments, those low balances are really about 60% of the credit score, sometimes a little more.
Those are all such great points, Rod. First, the fact that you're talking about those intentional actions that you have to take, right? So the on-time payments, having your credit history, so not really closing those accounts. That's one that I've heard quite a bit. Once you've paid something off, keep it open with a zero balance so that you can continue to have a credit history with longevity on it. And as you talked about those low balances, if you can't pay it off in full, I've heard the sweet spot is about 30% of your available credit. So if you can keep your balances lower than 30% of what you have available in credit, then it tends to help your credit score. Not only that, I love that you pointed out the things that having a great credit score or a good credit report helps with outside of actually having a new loan or a new credit card, which is like that security deposit. And when you're doing getting a new apartment, those utilities, all of those things, they're going to be looking at your credit score. So this is super important to take care of. So now that we've talked about how paying off debt is saving, Rod, what advice do you have, if any, once someone has paid off their debt? What should they be doing?
So when your debt's paid off, first, congratulations. That's a wonderful place to be. But you should still think about using credit. I always tell people credit and debt are closely related, but they're not the same thing. Credit's a financial tool, debt's the financial problem. So if you're using credit to your advantage, for example, if you have a credit card and you can use that card to get discounts on purchases or airline miles or better insurance rates, because you're working with an insurance company that is associated with the card, but you're not carrying a balance on that card. You make a small purchase, paid in full each month. You're using credit as a financial tool. You're not carrying any debt. And so use credit as a financial tool. Make it a resource for you, just like you do any other financial tool in your toolbox. You need to have credit there to work for you. So good idea to have 1 or 2 accounts open, pay those accounts in full, particularly a credit card, have 1, maybe 2, make a small purchase each month, pay it in full. That way you're showing that you have that positive history, you have activity, but you're not carrying debt. And so if you need it, it's there to work for you. But otherwise, debt isn't that financial problem.
I love the idea of leveraging credit and using it to our advantage if you have the ability to do that. Another thing you can do is as you pay off certain lines of credit, take the money that you were putting toward that debt each month and maybe put it toward saving something. So whether you're saving for emergencies or saving for retirement or another major savings goal like buying a house, you can kind of steward that money or use it in a different area that you're saving for. So Rod, you gave us some really great thoughts and how to reframe our mindset around how paying off debt is actually saving, and some really great advice around credit scores. Do you have any final thoughts around credit, debt, and or savings?
Yeah, I think it's important that you check your credit report. I talk to people all the time and ask them if they've checked their report, and they'll shake their head and say, no, I don't want to know what's there. And I always tell them, well, you can't do anything about it until you do, and it's free, and it's empowering. You know what's there in your credit history. You know what you need to do. You can learn what needs to be improved. We want people to get that credit report, use it just like you do a bank statement every month, so you know that you're managing your information well, that your credit is showing as it should, and that it's there to work for you. And we want you to have that, what we call credit swagger. We want you to be able to know what's in your report, know what your scores are, so that you can walk into the bank and tell them, I'm going to apply for a loan and you're going to approve it because I know exactly what I have to work with. That's empowering, and it helps you have a brighter, more healthy financial future. And that's what we're really all about. If you're paying off those debts, Kia, just like you said, you don't owe those debts. You can use those, what you would otherwise be putting toward paying off debts, toward your other future financial goals. And that's really what it's all about. Is credit's one of those financial tools in the toolbox. Use it to your advantage.
I love that credit swagger. I call when we tend to not want to look at certain things, whether it's our financial situation or how much is in our account or our credit scores. I call that the ostrich, where you're just burying your head in the sand and pretending like it doesn't exist. That doesn't help anyone. So we definitely don't want to be ostrich when it comes to our credit reports. So thanks for that reminder. And Rod, can't thank you enough. Everything that you said is really, especially about pulling your credit report, that's one very specific action that you can take during America Saves Week that helps you, our savers, have one less thing that you can check off, or one more thing that you can check off and ensure that you have, really checked in with your finances this week. That's the whole point of America Saves Week. So if you do nothing else, although there are a lot of things you can do this week, make sure that you go and pull that credit report so you know where you are. Rod, thank you so much for coming and sharing with our savers today. It's always great to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Kia.
Now, before we head out, remember to let us know your top takeaway from today's town hall before midnight on Friday, February 25th. Doing this, along with taking the America Saves Pledge within the last 12 months, means that you're eligible to win one of our five $500 cash prizes for our Think Like a Saver sweepstakes.
Thanks for joining us today for the Think Like a Saver 5 Ways to Make Saving Easier virtual town hall. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsors whose generous donations helped us bring this event to you. DCU, Equitable, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase & Company. As always, we encourage you to share with us what tips, strategies, and tools you plan to implement from today's event. Also, remember the 2 additional opportunities shared at the beginning of today: free financial counseling or coaching through AFCPE and the Coordinated Assistance Network, and the opportunity to win one of 5 $500 cash prizes in our Think Like a Saver sweepstakes. Thank you for allowing America Saves to be your savings accountability partner and trusted resource as you work hard towards your financial goals.